talking about shame. I don't know, I sure hope parents don't do this anymore, but I was raised, and I think I might have said this to my kids. I don't know, but when they would do something, and parents would say, "Well, aren't you ashamed of yourself?" I hope we're not saying that. I hope no one's saying that anymore. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? But shame, there's two different kinds of shame. There is healthy shame that says, I've made a mistake. I've fouled that up somehow. And then there's toxic shame that is given to us. The toxic shame is usually given to us in childhood. Now, if you've had any form of childhood abuse, and there's 5 different forms of childhood abuse. And there's sexual abuse, there's emotional abuse, there's physical abuse, there's religious abuse, and intellectual abuse. And so, if when a child has had any form of abuse, and I'm going to go out on a limb to say, well, any abuse, but particularly sexual abuse, any form of sexual abuse, the perpetrator has no shame. If they did, they wouldn't be doing they wouldn't have done what they did. They have no shame. And what they do, they put the shame on their victim, on the child. And so if you've had any form of childhood sexual abuse, shame is really the primary feeling that people need to work on, like in treatment, because shame can go into every part of our lives, and we carry it like a warm cloak, and we don't really know that we are. It's just such a feeling of not being good enough is really what shame is. I'm not good enough. So, and I had that, as a child because of the abuse. And then, I was never as good as my sister. I was never thin enough. I was never, fast enough. I was, because I was an overweight child. And I was a very overweight child and a very overweight adolescent and young adult. I was morbidly overweight. I was morbidly obese. Really, by the time I was 13 to 17, and that's hard for a child to. It's like. You're just wearing it. You wear your shame outside your body. And I've come to believe that every excess pound, either that excess pound that we carry around or that we're underweight or overweight, either way, where the weight, where the food is a part of it, every excess pound that we carry around represents unhealed pain and shame. We carry it in the very cells of our bodies. We carry the shame and the pain. And when we start doing work, this is why when I first opened, 38 years ago, I went up to South Dakota and did training up there to learn how to work do family systems work. And that's one of the things that we learned was a big thing about shame and how to help people do shame reduction work, shame and anger reduction work. And we still do that. To this day, 38 years later, when we do the intensives, that's what we do. We help people find a way to get that shame out of their body and, off of their body. Because we do carry it around with us, and it can interfere with every area of our life. So about 38 years ago, I started what a therapy that, and I'm going to do some. I want to put some on the calendar. I called them Breaking Free weekends. It started on Friday and ended at noon on Sunday. And really what it was, the whole essence of it was to break free of the chain that binds us, the chains of the past that shame bind. And so, like I said, there is two different types of shame. The healthy shame is, oops, I've made a mistake. Toxic shame is given to us, and what that equals is, I am a mistake. And when people have unresolved shame, they carry it, and they feel like that they are the mistake. So, and what toxic shame can do is we pass it on. We're either going to heal from it, or we're going to pass it on to the next generation. They will begin to pick up and carry our shame. This is an example that I've used many times. And this has been nearly 40 years ago. We used to treat adolescents. Thank God we don't anymore, but anyway, we treated adolescents. And we had a very young anorexic, very severe young adolescent anorexic here. And, when we would do staffing, or when we would get together as a staff of a morning and talk about clients, we all had a sense that she had had some form of sexual abuse. The way she carried her body, she had every sign and symptom of sexual abuse. It's never the therapist's place to put that on a client at all. You never mention that. That when you've worked with abusers for a long time, you pick up those vibes. But there was nothing in her history, nothing. And so, she came from a young family, her mom and dad, and she had a little brother. And anyway, when they came to family week, the grandmother came. The grandfather had passed away. He was a minister of a large, I'm not going to give the denomination, but of a pretty large church. The mother was, never worked. She worked because she was a minister's wife. Isn't that right, Risa? Ministers' wives work hard. So we did family week, and that's when the family comes in, and I had them up. We were sculpting their family, and I usually start with one of the parents. I had started with the mother, and I had the mother to go back. I took them back 3 generations, and I had the mother to go back and describe, what she knew about her parents' upbringing, and then bring it up to her parents, and then bring it up to hers. But one of the themes that her daughter brought in and mentioned many times is what her mom and dad would say to her. Now, this kid was 13 years old. Their motto was no sex before marriage, no sex before marriage, no sex. And she was 13. So we dealt with that while she was here. So I was sculpting the family, and the grandmother was sitting there. And so I got the mother talking about her father. And the woman broke down. Long story short, one of the secrets was that her and her husband were seniors in high school. They were pregnant with this little 13-year-old when they got married. They went off to an aunt's town or somewhere. They changed the, date on the marriage certificate. Anyway, all of a sudden she broke down. The mother broke down, started crying. The grandmother broke down, started crying. And what the the secret was out. I thought, this is the secret, the family secret. And all this, and the little girl just started screaming, and all my life you said no sex before marriage, blah, 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 blah. So I thought, good, we have already got to the core, we have got to the secret. Long story short, I want to shorten it. The mother got to talking. She again looked at her mother, and the big secret was she had been sexually abused by her father all of her life till she left home, and that's one of the reasons she left home, to get married young, and the mother knew about it. And so that was the huge secret, and that's what that daughter has carried, and that is what we call carried shame. Are y'all with me? That is carried shame, and it showed up in that 13-year-old as if she had been violated herself. If you don't think the shame is not, or feelings are not passed from one generation to the next, you ought to hang around here and work with some of the people we've worked with, because it is a generational curse, shame is. And so, in working, with clients, one of the main things is to look at and help them see if they do have the shame, where it's coming from, and do work around it. Shame comes from, not only does it come from parents, in early childhood, it comes from the culture that we live in. Women have kind of had shame put on us about, the way we dress, the way we walk, the way we talk, the way we eat, the way we die, blah, 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 blah. There's been shame through generations put on women. And, I'm not excluding you guys, but it's really sometimes very shaming to be a woman and to hear the things. I mean, I've got a woman on here, you don't see her, but she works, she started a program in Tyler for domestic violence. People that have been, anyway, I won't get into that, but I'm just grateful that there are people who work with women in particular that have been abused either in childhood or their adult life. So it's like some people are born under a shame sign. I mean, they come with shame written across their forehead. And that can be, can come from, like I said, trauma in the childhood. It can be carried shame from parents. It can be social messages. It can be culture. It can be religion. And we see this a lot where religion is, can be religious conditioning. Can make a person feel very shameful if they don't live up to those expectations of that particular religion. And so the feeling is, shame is a feeling of you're just not good enough. You're not good enough. And a lot of times, children will be compared to their siblings or other children. Why don't you do so-and-so? Why don't you act like so-and-so? That is putting shame on a child. Perfectionism. When you display perfectionism to a child and expect perfectionism, that is a seedbed for shame, because they grow up thinking they can't do anything right. And when I say that, I still can feel a little guilt, because I ran our house. I mean, we had 7 children. We had, bonus children, and we had 4 little ones. We had 3 teenagers. And I felt like I had to run that household. It was a big old 2-story house, and I wanted it spotlessly clean. I know that I did things with my children that was shame-based. But thank God the 12 steps and the 9th step, I've made amends, and I continue to make living amends to my children. But I lived in a very chaotic household, and what I was striving for in establishing my own home was perfection. Perfectionism, and perfection is another seedbed for shame, because you never get it perfect. And so if you don't feel like you're getting it perfect, then you feel bad about yourself, and then that's where the shame comes. And you feel like you never performed good enough. And so what does shame do to a person? Well, one thing, emotionally, we break down. We can isolate if if we're carrying around a lot of shame. We separate ourselves or isolate ourselves. We don't want people to really know and when we're carrying it, we don't even know that we're carrying it. We just know that there's been abuse in our childhood. We don't identify it as shame until we get into therapy rooms, usually. And then what it creates, carrying unresolved shame, creates depression. And this can be clinical depression, it can be situational depression, and then anxiety. Unresolved shame. When a child is carrying shame, I witnessed many things in my childhood that no kid should have ever witnessed. And when you do that, you carry that shame like a warm cloak. And I'll tell you, every bite that I overate, was for one reason and one reason only, and that was to fill that hole in my soul that I didn't know at the time. That, I felt pain just for my existence, just to be taking up space on the face of the earth, because according to other people, I took up a lot of space because I was a big girl. I ate myself up to almost 300 pounds. But anyway, emotionally, shame can create isolation where we want to be by ourselves, depression, anxiety, behavioral. We become, we've been talking about codependency. This is the end of our codependency series. But what can happen is we become people pleasers. We try to earn our worth by doing. We become human doers. And we self-sabotage ourselves. We can get into addiction, and to ease the pain of living. And if we have that brain chemistry, if we use any form of a substance, I can do something twice. If it feels good, I can get addicted to it. I've got that addiction brain. And so thank God and praise God in the program and a lot of hard work. I'm in, the God of my understanding. I am in recovery today, but it's taken a lot. So another thing is people that carry around a lot of shame stay on the defense. They're very defensive. They put up walls because they're afraid they're going to be blamed for something. Placing blame and we don't talk enough about that. I don't think that is a big core symptom of codependency. And I had that because, I wanted someone to know it wasn't my fault. Let's find somebody to blame whatever it is on. So we wind up with that defensiveness. We're just defensive about everything. And we put up walls. And we have a fear of being seen. We want to just kind of, go into the woodwork where nobody can see us. But of course, if we have that anger streak, which I did, mine was much more than anger. It was rage, and I would have that emotional build up, and then I'd blow up. I didn't know that I was carrying this from childhood. We don't know until we know. And I didn't know all of that came from the core of all of that came from the sexual abuse and the abuse from childhood. Okay, so we have that fear of being seen. And then the anger is we get very angry for being taken for granted. Uh, you know, it was just taken for granted. I had one sister, but I was the one that took care of mother. Bless my heart. Anyway, that's the Al-Anon salute. Bless my heart. Uh, and Up until our adult life, up till the day that my mother died, it was like she was my mother. I know my sister came up from Brownwood the day mother died, and she came in and she said, well, I just want to tell you, I can't pay for the funeral. I can't help with the funeral. And that's how she was with everything. It was like she was my mother. But anyway, also then the big deal with carrying unresolved shame is control issues. We try to control everything in our environment so we will feel better. It's called the big C. But the good news is recovery is possible. Recovery, I've been talking a lot about codependency. But just think, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Recovery is possible, and what recovery takes is hard work. It takes hard work, and we have to be willing to stay the course. It's not an instant thing. It's about peeling off the layers. It's about uncover. Peel off a layer. Discover what's underneath. Discover what you've been carrying that's not even yours, and then discard. It's uncover, discover, and discard all of that old stuff that you've been carrying around. And noticing the shame when it shows up used to, I don't know, I guess I just self-taught myself. I had a knowing that, I wanted to hide out as an adult. I wanted to hide out at my house because I felt, and I was, morbidly obese, but I wanted to hide out so no one would see me. And I felt so ashamed of my body. And by that time, I really had not done any work on the sexual abuse. I had a knowing, but I always discounted it all. But anyway, and so what I did, I forced myself out into the community. And I was so shy and bashful, but I did not want my kids to be. So I forced myself to do things, to volunteer for things at school. And once you start volunteering, boy, they got your phone number, And so I got involved in school. I got involved in 4-H. I got involved as a pink lady at the hospital. We were up at the hospital yesterday to visit a friend, and she was having some test run, and we didn't get to see her. But as I walked through those halls, I remember the days that I was a pink lady, and I felt so proud to wear that pink uniform. But that is just right up a good codependence alley, because I could get in there and help other people. But anyway, but recovery is awareness. Just noticing the shame and when it shows up. And it can show up in a lot of different areas. And number 2 is naming it. Naming it, speaking it out loud to someone, a therapist or a sponsor, speaking out loud. I carried a lot of shame about my weight. My mother she was never, she would go from, and I know today she had an eating disorder, we had no idea, but she'd go from like skinny 98 pounds, she got down to 98 pounds one time. She did have stomach problems, but she'd go from 98 pounds to 180 or 200 at a time. Well, I went far beyond that. I went to 287 was my top weight. The mother's weight, of course, she was drinking alcohol, and that was really where the weight gain came for her. She didn't eat that much. She made up the calories in the drinking. but her motto was laugh at yourself. Laugh and the world will laugh with you. Cry and you cry alone. If I heard that once, I heard it 1,000 times because I had so much shame about my body. I know today it wasn't all about the weight, it manifested itself in the weight. It was the shame that I carried from the things that I lived through and noticed. And for some reason or other, I was the chosen child that got to witness a lot of the things that my dad would do. Anyway, I'm not even going to get into all of that today. So another thing is naming what the shame is. Do the work, do your work, do your work, do your work. It's not going to get better on its own. And that means getting to therapists that does experiential time of therapy. Talk therapy is very good to get your story straight, but you can talk the problem to death. You don't want to stay in the problem. Find therapists that can help you move from the problem to the solution. And I will tell you that issues are in the tissues of our bodies. If you don't do some form of body movement and doing the shame-based work, it will stay stuck in your body. So number 3, speaking it out loud and clear to safe people. Speak your story. People need to hear your story. Now, not everyone in the world. If you ride on an airplane and your person next to you don't know them from Adam, you don't need to tell them your full story. You don't need to go around telling your story. Don't wear it as a badge of honor, and I've known people that have done that, and they talk their story away to where they become, like I said, they become their story. They become the shade. They become who, it was really given to them in childhood. So speaking it out loud, though, to safe people, like I said a while ago, therapist, a sponsor, a close friend, someone that will have a listening for you. There's a difference between just hearing, just listening to someone and have a real listening for someone. When you listen to someone, you get engaged in what they're saying. You really pay attention. A lot of conversations are, we sit and wait till one person finishes talking so we can say something, Healthy listening is having a listening, just listen to a person. And a lot of times when you're shame bound, that is a gift that you can give someone, is to have a listening for them. And then journal, write it out. 2 of the most powerful, help me with the time, my watch is not right.
It's 10:30.
Okay, write. Pen and paper are 2 of the most powerful tools in that you could ever have. Write down all that negative stuff. Get it out of your head down on paper, and get those shame thoughts down. And because they're living rent free in your head. When you're letting that stay in your head, you're letting it live rent free. And to just fill up your head with that, with those messages. You're fat, you're lazy, I don't know why in the world our society has coupled being overweight with being lazy. I could outwork most people when I weighed almost 300 pounds. I've always had a lot of energy, blessed with a lot of energy, but you kind of just, label a person fat and lazy. So, write out those names that you recalled. And, if I heard once, I heard it many times, my dad, you'll never amount to anything. My sister looked just like him. She was thin, she was white complected, she was blonde headed, blue eyed, and that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. I'm dark skinned, black head, brown eyes, and I was fat. And so he would say, "Your sister's so smart and she's going to be a lawyer." He missed it. She was not smart. She was boy crazy. She had a boyfriend by the time she was 2 years old. And then she ran off and got married at 16. So she didn't become that lawyer. She was smart. But children who are raised in alcoholic homes usually have higher intelligence than the norm because we have to stretch our brains so much. But anyway, that's a talk for another time. So those messages is, and then I don't mean to be talking about myself, but I am. But anyway, I had a speech problem. I didn't talk plain, and I had to go to a half a day in first and second grade. I had to go to half a day twice a week to regular class, and then I had to go to speech therapy. But they put everyone in the same room that had any kind of, we were coming out of the polio epidemic, and so we were, there was kids in there that had different types of challenges, and there was this one little girl that was in a wheelchair, and she had this huge head. To this day, I don't know what her ailment was, but I had a fear any day that my head was going to get that big. And my sister would tell me, "You have the biggest head of anybody I've ever seen." Well, I thought I was going to wind up in a wheelchair. Anyway, little children make up things, but I couldn't talk plain, and I couldn't say my R's. And I still have to stop and kind of pause and really get my tongue right if I'm going to say something with an R in it, particularly if it starts with an R. And so right now, if I had to say this one name, I'd probably mess it up, so I'm not even going to try. But anyway, that carries a lot of shame with, when you don't talk plain. And when I was young, the way that I would say different words sounded kind of cute from a little kid. And my parents would put me on display. Ask the guest, ask somebody if they want to drink of water, because they wanted me to say water because I couldn't say it plain. That is putting shame on a child. So anyway, I'm doing a whole fourth step with y'all this morning, fifth step with y'all this morning. But I think sometimes that it's good to kind of tell on ourselves. Another message that I would hear is, "You'll never get married because men don't like fat girls. You'll never." What that meant was my father didn't like fat girls. He loved women. My sister and I would always say he had a split personality. He hated women, but he loved sex. And so, I got a lot of, and I'm sure my sister did too, but she'd never ever talk about it. But anyway, there was a lot of negativity about bodies and all in our home. So one of the things that I would encourage, I'm going to give you a little assignment that you might want to do later. If you would write down, just when you have the time, sometime, you might just draw an outline, not a full silhouette, but just draw, maybe take a poster board and draw an outline of your body, or just, a little outline. And then I want you, if you want to do this assignment, write out everything that lives in your head, every message that lives in your head. And not the positive. They're there, but we're not going to look at that. What we're looking at, any negative message that has ever lived in your head, whether you just thought it or if it was said to you. Write down every negative message. So this is your assignment. All right. Then have 3 different color of pens, and take one color and go back and circle every one of those negative messages that came from your mother. And sometimes they were unspoken messages, but anything that any of those messages that you got that came from your mother, circle that in one color. Then go back with your dad, a different color, circle them. All right, that third one, take another color and write about, circle the ones that you say to yourself in another color. And just do that if you're interested in that. You'll get to see some of the shame that you carry around that's not even yours. It was given to you. So if you want to do an assignment on shame, that's a good one. And then write about it. Write it out. Write it out. Write it out. And then if you want to really do a fourth one, get another color or pen, go back to that same list, circle what your spouse has said to you, either out loud or in behavior, the message that you get from your spouse. So that's an interesting assignment. Okay, all right, so you got you an assignment, and then remember, all of that is not true about yourself. Remember that. And you're letting people live rent-free in your head. If you've still got those messages in your head, you might want to come do another intensive or come do an intensive and get a layer of those messages out of your head, because it's those messages that live inside of us that take us back to the bottle. That's the one that takes us back to the food. That's the one that takes us back into the overworking, overspending, takes us back to the sex addiction. It takes us back. If you're an addict, those messages that live rent-free in your head is the one that takes you back to relapse. So one of the things is to help is reclaiming your worth and value. Reclaiming your worth and value and know that you are a perfectly imperfect child of God. Perfectly imperfect. We all are. And claim that and reclaim it and see your value. And another thing, and how you can really do this, is say affirmations. We recommend for people who come through here is to write 50 simple affirmations. Simple. 1 or 2 word affirmations. I am lovable. I am beautiful. I am caring. I am, whether you believe them or not, you do not have to believe them. Make them up. 50 affirmations. And then if you will take that list of affirmations and go to a mirror and look in the dark part of your eye and read those affirmations. You read and look, you read and look, you read and look. Read those affirmations to yourself. And this is a challenge. 5 times a day. Do that 5 times a day in front of a mirror for 2 weeks. I challenge you to do that. It's like a computer. You put junk into a computer, that's what you're going to get out. You put good stuff in there, that's what you're going to get out. So, doing these affirmations, by the end of that 2 weeks, if you do them 5 times a day for 2 weeks, they're going to become a working part of your brain. They're going to be there. They're going to be with you. I challenge you to do that. Affirmations are powerful and real short ones. It was hard for me to do that first list. I felt embarrassed. I felt like a con artist. I felt like I was making up stuff that wasn't real, and so it's not easy to make that list. of affirmations to say to yourself, but do it anyway. I'd encourage you to do it anyway. And then another thing about how to get past shame is boundaries, 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 boundaries. This is the two most important things to have on board to recover from codependency, and this is what we've been working with for this month, or more than a month, is on codependency. The two things that you must have is healthy self-esteem and boundaries. So how do you build healthy self-esteem? I want y'all to be thinking about it, because I'm going to ask you in a minute, and I want you to tell us, how do you build self-esteem? What has helped you to build your self-esteem? Y'all think about it. So I'm going to call on you if you don't volunteer. So the thing about it, I want to close this series out with hope. There is a lot of hope for recovery. If I didn't think that we could recover from codependency, from the shame of codependency, from the things that we carry from our childhood, if I didn't think we could recover from it, I wouldn't want to be in this business. I would not. But you can get to the other side of shame. And healthy shame is saying, gosh, I made a mistake here. It's the same as guilt. I did something that is not in my value system. When you live outside your value system, you're going to feel guilty about it. And when you own up to the guilt, you're going to get it off your back. You're going to feel better about yourself. So shame grows in silence and in the dark. Think about it. Anytime there's abuse, it usually happens in the dark. Shame grows in silence and in the dark. It dies in the light. So it's about bringing the shame out into the light and talk about it to someone else. You don't have to talk about it, to that guy or person sitting next to you on a plane ride or your next door neighbor. You don't have to tell the world, but it's important to tell some safe people, a good therapist, a sponsor, a close friend. One of the things, when you tell someone, if you want to know how they are with your information, give them something that doesn't, tell them something, a secret, or make up something that doesn't amount to a hill of beans. Tell them something and see if it makes its way back to you. Then you'll know that that's not a safe person to talk to. Doesn't mean you have to quit being friends with them. It means you might want to be careful about what you share with this person, because they are going to go tell someone else, because that's how they feel good about themselves. Because most people who share information with other people feel bad about their own story. They feel bad about themselves. So they'd much rather tell about dirt on someone else. And then anyway, I'm getting into the gossip part. So, all right. Remember, you are becoming, well, no, you're not becoming. You already are what you've always wanted to be. Think about that. You already are what you've always wanted to be. You are a child of God. And embrace your healing. Embrace it. Protect it as you would, a fine, a jewel, something that is very valuable, because recovery is valuable. Don't give it away. So embrace your healing self. Just absolutely know that you are worth recovery. Put the time in. Put the time in for recovery. And I will tell you, it does take time. Recovery takes time and attention and action. And action, and more action. I had a woman that was here. She was a therapist. She was our clinical director many, many, many years ago. And she said, find the equation. Find the equation. If you want to get 20% better, put in 20% effort. If you want to get 5% better, put 5% effort in. Whatever you put into any situation, that's the equation. That's what you're going to get back. If you want 100% recovery, you give it all you have, and I'll tell you, there is no failure. It works. Recovery works. God, ourselves, and another human being, at least one other human being. God, ourselves, and another human being. So that's what I have on shame. And y'all remember what I asked you to think about? What did I ask you to think about?